Tutankhamun. You know the name, you've definitely seen the mask. It's become totally synonymous with the golden age of ancient Egypt. But the story of the boy king? Well, it's a story packed with paradoxes. He was a pretty minor pharaoh in life who somehow became the most famous pharaoh in death. He was a restorer of ancient traditions, but his own identity is now the subject of some really fierce modern debate. So let's unwrap the story of this accidental icon.
I mean, just look at this. This has to be one of the most recognizable objects on the entire planet. For a solid century, this calm golden face has been the ultimate symbol of ancient mystery and incredible treasure. It's an image that just radiates power. But the fame of the man behind it, well, that raises a really fascinating question.
No, seriously, think about it for a second. This was a kid who took the throne and was gone by the time he was about 18. His reign was super short, and his legacy at the time was, pretty quickly overshadowed. So how on earth did he eclipse pharaohs who built the Great Pyramids or ruled for over 60 years? Well, the answer has almost nothing to do with what he actually did when he was alive, and everything to do with what happened 3,000 years after he died. He is truly an accidental icon. The simple answer is pure dumb luck. Archaeological luck. While the tombs of legendary pharaohs like Ramesses the Great were picked clean by ancient tomb robbers, Tutankhamun's little resting place stayed hidden. It was a nearly perfect time capsule of what a royal Egyptian burial was supposed to look like. And these are the two guys we have to thank. On the right, you've got the incredibly determined British archaeologist Howard Carter, who spent years searching the Valley of the Kings. And on the left is his financial backer, Lord Carnarvon. He was the guy with the money, and maybe more importantly, the patience that made this whole long, frustrating quest possible. And man, what a long wait it was. What's so wild is how he got forgotten. About 150 years after he died, some workers building a totally different tomb nearby just built their huts right on top of his entrance. They buried it under rubble without even knowing. And that simple, everyday act sealed it away from the world for over 3,000 years. Incredible. 5,398. Let that number sink in for a minute. That's how many individual items Carter's team found crammed into Tut's tiny tomb. It was so overwhelming, such a massive treasure trove, that it took them an entire decade just to catalog and clear it all. And the stuff they found was just breathtaking. We're talking a solid gold inner coffin, the iconic mask, incredible furniture, chariots, and yeah, even the king's linen underwear. But some things were just on another level, like a dagger with a blade forged from the iron of a meteorite, a metal that literally fell from the heavens. This discovery gave us our first and only complete look at a pharaoh's burial. Okay, so we know why he's famous. But who was he really? What did he actually do during his short 9-year reign? Well, it was nothing less than a complete religious and political U-turn for all of Egypt. So his father, Akhenaten, was basically a heretic king. He tossed out Egypt's entire roster of gods to worship just one thing, the Aten, the physical disk of the sun. He moved the capital city, he shut down the old temples. It was a massive upheaval. Tutankhamun's job as a young boy was to undo every single bit of that revolution and bring back the old gods. And you can hear the urgency in his own words. This quote from a decree he had carved really captures the crisis he was claiming to solve. It paints this picture of a land where the gods have literally abandoned Egypt because their homes are in ruins. It was a really powerful piece of propaganda to justify all the changes he was making. And his actions were really decisive. First thing, he changed his own name. He went from Tutankhaten, which means living image of Aten, to Tutankhamun, living image of Amun. That one name change was a massive signal that his father's revolution was over. Then he reopened the temples and kicked off this huge restoration project to put the god Amun right back at the center of everything. But beyond all the royal duties and politics, his personal story is full of these mysteries that just won't go away, especially when it comes to his health and his really sudden death, which researchers are still debating to this day. For decades, the leading theory was pretty dramatic: murder, a blow to the back of the head. But modern science has actually painted a very different, and maybe even more tragic, picture of his final days. Yeah, it turns out it probably wasn't just one thing, but a deadly combination. Genetic testing shows he had malaria, not just once,
but multiple times, and with the nastiest strain. On top of that, CT scans revealed he suffered a really bad compound fracture in his left leg right before he died. So the leading theory now is that his body, already weakened by chronic malaria, just couldn't fight off the infection from that devastating injury. His death leads us right into another huge debate. How are we supposed to picture this guy? Was he the powerful warrior king we see in his tomb art? Or was he a physically weak ruler, struggling with health problems? And this slide just perfectly captures that conflict. On the left, you've got the official propaganda, King Tut, the mighty pharaoh, charging into battle, looking invincible. But on the right, you have an artifact that tells a very different story. His tomb had over 130 canes and walking sticks, which for years everyone took as proof that he had a clubfoot and literally couldn't walk without them. But, and this is a pretty big but, recent studies on those exact canes have thrown a wrench in that theory. A close-up analysis found very little wear and tear on the tips. They just weren't used heavily like a medical crutch would be. So the thinking now is that they were probably symbols of his royal office, ceremonial regalia, not medical aids. And that brings us right into the modern era and the intense, sometimes heated, scientific and cultural debates that now surround Tutankhamun. Who was the man behind that golden mask? The answer, it turns out, really depends on who you ask and what data they're using. It all starts right here, with his actual remains. Using CT scans and DNA analysis, scientists have tried to piece together his face and figure out his ancestry. But this whole process has become a flashpoint for much bigger conversations about race, identity, and who gets to claim the heritage of ancient Egypt. And the data itself is really complex. For example, a 2020 study found his paternal line, his Y haplogroup, was R1b, which is common in modern Western Europeans. But then a 2022 analysis, looking at different genetic markers, found strong links to current sub-Saharan African populations. As one researcher wisely points out, different data and different methods can give you very different results, which just reflects the incredibly complex genetic history of that whole region. And these scientific attempts to put a face on him can get incredibly controversial. A 2014 documentary created this full-body digital reconstruction that really emphasized all his supposed physical problems, and it was met with outrage. This quote here kind of captures that feeling, that digitally unwrapping a man who died 3,000 years ago can cross the line into a disrespectful, morbid freak show. And so after all the scans, the DNA tests, and the debates, we come right back to this. The mask. It doesn't tell us about his ancestry or his ailments. It just remains this serene, powerful, and deeply mysterious symbol, representing not just a boy king, but the enduring mystery of the ancient world itself. In the end, Tutankhamun's story is the ultimate example of how history isn't always written by the most powerful people. Sometimes it's written by pure chance, by the shifting sands that just happened to hide a tomb, preserving a minor king for a future that would make him more famous than he could have ever dreamed. It really makes you wonder, what truly makes a legacy? Our actions or just accidents?